is a secluded enough place to do this. At least I hope. Nobody's gonna walk around the corner and look at me being a weirdo over here. Sounds like there's something there. Anyway, so I debated even making this video in the first place because I was like not 100% sure that I wanted to sell it because it's not completed. But I guess this can count as a parts overview. I've already done a video that I'm working on that talks about the process I've like gone through to build this. But this is just a very specific to the bike parts overview, and then I'm also going to go over all the parts that I have in excess that will come with it if someone decides to purchase it. So no, this is not the cleanest looking motorcycle ever. In fact, I have barely wiped it down since finishing it, just a couple of times to get the large oil and grease deposits off of it. But let's start with what this is. This is a 2007 Husqvarna SMR 510. And I know anybody that knows what these bikes are is gonna immediately be down in the comments typing, oh my gosh, no it's not, I can tell by the frame, the angle, oh my goodness, it's not a 2007. Oh wait, but the forks, they're not the black ones, they're the gold ones. What is going on? This is a Frankenstein bike. And if you want to know the whole story, the process, how I came upon all the parts and how I put it together and what I had to do that, you can go watch that one. But just this is a 2007 engine. It is a carbureted engine, and it is on a 2008 SMR 510 frame. I talk about that a little bit more in the other video, but basically I had no clean title for this bike. I couldn't get it registered in Georgia to drive street legal, and I found someone that had a street legal frame and title that came with it. And so I'm gonna make this sound simpler than it is, but I transplanted everything off of the old frame onto the new one. It barely worked, but it worked. So there's a 2008 frame, clean Georgia title, completely street legal motorcycle somewhat, and it's a 2007 engine. I built this bike from the ground up. I was so excited. It's taken me about a year to do it. Now that I have it done, it kind of breaks my heart to admit that this is not the motorcycle that I wanted. And it's even worse to admit that it's not the motorcycle I wanted, given I haven't finished it yet. So that led us to here, where we're making the for sale video. I really thought that this was going to be like the next step for me, because I prefer the upright feeling of the naked motorcycles. I love supermotos, but this is just, in all honesty, too much bike for me in every way. It's too much maintenance, too much power. I'm just not comfortable on it, and it's too tall, and I've got the shock sitting as low as it'll sit. The seat, it really isn't the tall one, it's the very thin base one that came OEM on it. And I know I can get a lowering link for it, but that kind of sounds ridiculous to do. It's kind of ridiculous to put a lowering link on a supermoto and try to slam it down, which is it's just one of the bigger reasons I'm selling it. It didn't excite me the way I wanted it to. So front to back, I have 2 sets of Brembo calipers, brakes, and I have a second set of forks to go with it. I only have 1 set of triple trees because the other 2 triple trees I have go to the 2007. It needs new rims. That's something I'm not willing to invest money in, because I've just finished it and I've only had it for 2 or 3 weeks, and I know that it's not the bike I want to continue with. The headlight, yes, I know everyone in the world hates when people do these little electric ties. I just wanted to get it street legal to practice riding it a little bit. My intentions were to order, I have 2 OEM casings for the lights. I was going to rewire and rework and do it the correct way with the electrical pins, but again, not sure if I want to put the money into it, given I don't plan on keeping the bike. So it looks terrible, but it functions. This is a street legal light. It has a high and low beam, and it runs off of the OEM handlebar assembly. I have the red cap, matching red radiator hosing, a matching set of red radiator hosing that goes with the bike. I have a second carburetor, and lo and behold, I actually have an entire second part engine that will come with this motorcycle if someone decides to buy it. It has the cylinder head. It has an extra set of springs. It has an extra set of cams, timing chain, timing gear. It has an extra water pump. It has an extra water pump cover. It literally has everything you need to build a completely separate bike, minus the transmission, because the transmission in the first one was a little messed up. It's still usable, but it's not I wouldn't recommend putting it together and driving it. It's supposed to be a parts engine. This is a Twin Arrow special parts specifically for Husqvarna exhaust pipe. A lot of the Husqvarna people are going to look at this and be like, hey, the 2007s, that's not the side of the bike that the exhaust is going to be on. Yes, I know. Hence the airbox delete and the universal intake filter. That is just straight onto the carburetor. And then that manifold that's poorly done, I need to figure out a better way to do that, or the next person can, depending on who buys this. The intake manifold was actually a part that I bought from Halls that I'm pretty sure that they had to machine themselves. That thing, you cannot find one, and the old ones constantly dry rot and fall apart. So that is literally just a sleeve that bolts onto the cylinder head, and then you put your own piping there. So that worked perfectly for the carburetor. I have a second exhaust manifold. Hey, that's adorable.
Thanks. Good looking bike.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's for sale. Do you want it?
No, I'm good, man. My motorcycle days are over.
Mine too. I have a second intake manifold that's going to come with the bike if you purchase it. It also has an OEM can. The can is gutted. It does not have the interior, the filter, the silencing part, so it kind of just sounds like it's pretty loud. It sounds like a straight pipe. I wouldn't necessarily put it back on the bike, especially with this one sounding as good as it does. These really cool plastics that I got have the SMR 510 decals. They also come with I believe they're a Cerbis or a Cherbis, however you pronounce it, but they've been painted to match and have the same SMR 510 decal on them, which is really cool. So the manifold, or the intake, the lettering, the grips, don't really like those handlebar mounts, but they all kind of match that red theme, red top, red pipes. It's great. It's great. This, as a lot of you can probably tell, is not OEM. This is from the 2007, which does not have the same subframe. So I had to cut this a little bit to get it on there. That is one of the things that I would definitely recommend fixing, because it will help line up the body lines. This aggravates me to no end. The seat was next to impossible to find. I mean, it took me 6 or 8 weeks to find a 2008 seat for this thing. It has an aftermarket, I believe this is either a 2.5 or a 4-gallon tank. It extends all the way to the front. I have a second wiring harness for it. I have 2 sets of clamps, the handlebar clamps. I have a second vapor. It's an older model. A second set of foot pegs, because those pegs are scratched up from being dropped on the previous bike really bad on the left side. But they still look better. You can't really see it unless you get down here. I have a second, I actually have an OEM slave cylinder for, where am I looking? I'm on the wrong side of the bike. Second OEM slave cylinder for the clutch. And I have an aftermarket one on the parts engine that I haven't installed yet. That is the Oberon slave cylinder that I know those are really popular. This has a 15 tooth front sprocket instead of the 14 in the front, which most people like, but I really don't have any trouble with acceleration and movement and stuff like that. I'm trying to think. I have a whole bunch of parts. I have fork guards. They're not OEM, so they don't have the mounting point for the wires, which is why I didn't put them on yet. I want to try see if I can find some OEM ones, but I'm going to go ahead and post this video and get some interest in the bike, see who would be interested. Oh, I have an OEM rear taillight for it, a BRP chain guard. What's that? So our Honda Accord. I have an BRP chain guard. I have an OEM chain guard. The start, I have 2 ignition coils, a third one that's been cut already but came with one of the bikes. Those are super easy to rewire. I know that it's not a CPU in a carbureted bike. It might be, but there I have a second starting relay, an entire wiring harness, an extra Woodruff key, because the Woodruff keys in these go bad all the time. That's off of the flywheel. A couple shims for it. The cylinder head, I'll include a picture, is in not great shape. It has a little chipping next to the exhaust valves, which will need to be taken care of if anyone plans on using it. But it's I already had a quote done, and they said it'd be like $400 or $500 to have it rehoned, so it's really not that bad. The jug is flawless on the other one. That's completely ready to use. Oberon slave cylinder, I already mentioned that. Parts engine with the starter, shaft, transmission, all that casing. I have a second piston that came off the old bike. I went ahead and put a new one. So this bike has a completely new top end. It's got new valves. It has the OEM springs on it. They've been timed correctly. The cams have been redone and are nice and pretty. And the valves, I think I already said the valves are new. I have, on top of that, one of the things that people love, a second set of springs, second set of gaskets for the whole bikes, all the bolts for the engine I have in duplicate in case those ever get stripped or someone needs them. And then my favorite are the cam caps. So those cam caps cost me 150 bucks a piece for 2 of them, or so 300 bucks. I went and bought the new bike, or the parts bike that I got from St. Louis, and it came with 4 in perfect condition, so those will come with the bike as well. It also has a fan that can be mounted on the radiator that I don't necessarily know how to, so I haven't tried. I'm not splicing stuff into my wiring harness unless I have to. Extra shocks. Oh, it has an OEM intake manifold if you want to get rid of the black one, the ugly one that I don't like. A box of assorted levers and sprockets and stuff with an OEM handlebar clamp, OEM chain guard that I don't have on there, but I should. I have both of my all of the stuff that I have in spare parts is actually nicer than the stuff that's currently on it, just because I haven't gotten to put it on. But if whoever ends up looking into this or buying this motorcycle will have enough nice parts to put on it and make it pretty, which I don't want to spend the time doing, as well as enough spare parts to maintain this motorcycle for, you know, the foreseeable future. Because as long as you're doing the oil change regularly, you're redoing the valves, you're checking your clearance, you are rebuilding the top end per the manual, you're going to be fine. This thing's going to run great. It's an absolute wheelie machine. It stops and goes, but it's just not what I had envisioned myself on. I do have a second gear lever too, because that one's all scratched up. It's the stock one. It's just a silver one. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. I really didn't have to come all the way out here to make this video, but I thought that it would be a good thing to do so I can have the camera footage of me driving the motorcycle back to back with me going over all the parts and such. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This is a 2007 carbureted SMR 510 engine on a 2008 frame with 2008 components, and then I have a bunch of spare parts. So I'm going to link the marketplace ad in the description, and I'm also going to link this video in the marketplace ad so people can cross, because I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions I'm sure people are going to have. And I guess my final statement is, I know that there's going to be a ton of Husqvarna fanboys up in every comment section and in my messages talking about how, oh, I ruined this, I did this terribly, I should have taken my time and done it better, I should have gotten new rims, I'm selling it in shit condition, blah 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 blah. This was my bike. I did it the way I wanted to. I did it the way I could, given my budget and my assets and stuff like that, and I'm pretty proud with how it turns out. Mechanically, it runs great. It cranks on the first try. Every time once it's warmed up, it takes like 2 or 3 seconds. When it's cold, you just got to turn the petcock on and let it run for a little bit. It rides hard, it rides fun. It's just too aggressive for me. I know it's rough around the edges, but I feel like this is going to be a great motorcycle for someone who knows how to work on their bikes and loves working on their bikes, because it comes with so many extra components. For me, that was a turn off. It has all the power in the world. It's so much fun. I can never imagine needing a motorcycle that has more power than this when you know, consider its power to weight ratio. But it's just not comfortable. You're 30 minutes in, and if you're not someone that just wants to be on the back wheel 24/7, you're not going to be comfortable cruising on this bike. It's not great in city traffic. You have to turn it off at every stoplight because it just doesn't, the radiators don't keep it cool unless you're moving, hence the fan that you can install that I don't have. Just not the ideal bike for someone like me, but for someone else, it's going to be a great motorcycle. Someone who can make it look prettier than I ever did, because I suck at cosmetic work. All right.